we identified using the LIFT dashboard provided by Policy and Practice 187 residents who are in temporary accommodation and were receiving employment support allowance or a universal credit work component, limited work component, but they weren't getting PIP. We know if we're going to help all of these people with, putting a PIP application in, that will be hugely time consuming, and we just don't have the resources to do that. And we reduced the cohort to 30 by cutting the data such that we were picking up those who had a particular level of rent arrears, and that kind of focused on a really important group because of they're in danger of getting further into debt, and it also managed our capacity. So we kind of sent texts and emails to the cohort before we made the phone calls. The idea behind that is that residents expect to hear from us. It kind of reduces that fear of cold calling and scam calling. It gives them an idea of what we want to talk about. In terms of how they engage, the outreach team are really, really experienced in doing this. They work in the community with extremely vulnerable people, and their approach is completely holistic. So we do have a story which is a quick early win. Mr. J, who was struggling enormously with his health, he had multiple health conditions. He had made a claim for PIP himself, but had been turned down. And he'd then followed that up with a mandatory reconsideration. Both of these had been turned down, and he'd registered the case as an appeal, and that was the point where we got to speak to Mr. J. And one of our officers interviewed him at length and has formulated a kind of detailed submission of paperwork addressing each of the relevant points. The hearing basically agreed with everything that our disability officer had put together with Mr. J. They completely reversed their decision. So what that means is £21,000 in benefit for Mr. J, 14.3k in backdated benefits. So obviously that is going to be life-changing for him. It means there's every likelihood that he'll be able to clear his arrears and live a much kind of easier life. And it means we can start to have conversations with him potentially about move on, which will be beneficial for him, because temporary accommodation is never an ideal living situation.